Okay. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about curriculum then and
Yep.
curriculum planning, and particularly about SOS and the arts, and what it is about SOS and the arts that, that this unit that the students are studying is called Transdisciplinary Arts and SOS. So what is it about arts and SOS that means that they work well together, or that you can plan curriculum around them well?
I think, first of all, you have to look at SOS and the arts as examples of integration, because in the arts there are 5 very distinct disciplines, and in SOS there's often described as 5 very distinct disciplines or strands, but SOS covers history and geography basically, and maybe environmental science, maybe. And then the arts, of course, English drama, visual art, dance, music and media. So immediately you're set up with this situation where you've already got a huge amount of discipline knowledge that there is no way anyone can do justice to if you try and cover all of that all at once. So what is it about those two KLAs that actually work well? Well, both of them have inquiry at their centre. Both of them say, what's a big idea? Why is this important? How does this impact on the world around me? What meaning does this have? One of these subject areas, the SOS subject areas, tend to ask very specific questions about inquiry. How do we find out? What do we do with the information once we have it? How do we judge that information? How do we make decisions based on that information? Then how do we report that information? It's kind of a cycle. And then when we've reported it and shared, then what does that do for our big question? And then you go in a cycle and you start thinking about it again in a slightly more complex way or a different context. So it's a very strong cycle of inquiry. What's the question? Why is this important? Who cares? Why does it matter? And whenever I'm a geography teacher, that's obviously my other background really strongly, is that I always felt with geography it gave purpose to things. Why does it matter that we conserve water? Why does it matter that there's, what's a footprint? What's that about? Those questions about environmental sustainability are inherent to the nature of this subject area. In the arts is all about individuals' experiences of the world that they live in, their internal emotional ones and the ones that belong to community and culture. And they are only impactful if they have resonance with other people, or really significant resonance for the individual. So they're also asking questions. Who am I? Who are we? Why are we here? Why is this important? How do I feel about that? How do I persuade you? How do I entertain you? How do I convince you? And so if you're thinking about these really big questions about, what is it important about the environment? Why is that a significant moment in history? Why is it important that we understand different cultures? And you also go, well, what is it about the arts that already resonates with those two? You can see that it's the inquiry, it's the connection with individual inside and with culture, and it's big questions. This one gives you lots of different ways to express your answers, and this one gives you a really good way to think about questions and questioning. And if you bring those two together, this often provides the rich context for the expression and the work here. So rather than giving kids a blank page, create something. Be creative. Tomorrow I'd like you to make a film. Tomorrow you've got to do a drama. Nobody can do that. Blank pages are, unless you're Mozart, at 13 or whatever, or 6, I think his first amazing piece of work, unless you're an absolutely unique mind who's getting stimulus from somewhere else. That's not most kids. So what you've got to think about is, well, how do you help young people learn what's exciting about being creative and expressive, even if they've never done it before in any other capacity, except for when they were young kids and it came intuitively. And then how do you get kids to think that the world is meaningful and that they really should care about some big issues, and that they can make a difference and that they can influence and have a voice? Well, that's where you get your context from. And you ask kids to express their feelings about that, their attitudes about that through art forms. Obviously, I don't think any teacher can be expected to do all 5 strands or all 5 strands. It's just not going to happen. So what you've got to do is then make some wise decisions about what sits nicely together. And sometimes you have to do that with advice. Sometimes you have to think, well, is this question lending itself more to a particular performance mode, or lending itself more to a particular creative mode? Is building a script for something a really effective way forward, or is a visual representation important. Is getting kids to think about what it means to them through some artistic expression the way in to asking them to then go and do a different kind of inquiry process and do some research around it. So is after doing all this research, do they have a strong feeling about it? Do they want to then share that feeling in a way with other people? So then you go back to the art. So you just have to think as a teacher and sometimes be led by the kids, I think, about as to what it is you hope for them. You know, if this is important enough to teach, you obviously have a reason why you think it's, you know, useful and hopeful and valid for them. So I think of the arts as a hugely rigorous, enriching pedagogy, and I think of SOS as one of those really meaningful, well-structured, well-thought-through ways to reflect on time and place and the environment, some of those big questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that leads me on to the question of devices then, and you mentioned, you know, some of the ways into, you know, integrating and working across the two areas. I know some teachers structure their curriculum around themes or conceptual devices and so on. Do you have a preference for any of those, or?
Yeah, it sort of depends on the age group a little bit. So for example, with and also where you're teaching. So if you're teaching in a distinctive middle school, you probably find there are units that are developed for you. So the school has already given a framework. They might be a framework about who am I and where do I live, or it might be one about sustainable resources. And that'll cover all KLAs, or at least a few of them. So some schools have already given you the big frame. In other instances, you have to generate it yourself. Coming from an art, if I'm starting with the arts as a planning place, I tend to think, well, what is it that I really want the kids to learn? So do I want them to learn how to move and feel confident with their bodies and get to know this group, and I want there to be a strong sense of connection with other people, so I really want that to happen. Do I know that there's some distinctive cultural differences that I want to kind of grapple with a little bit? Do I know that there's some interesting event happening? You know, there is already a festival coming up, or an art gallery exhibit, or a film that I'd like to take them to see. So I sort of think about those starting points and go, well, you know, how do I create experiences that will lead me to the end of that? If I'm starting from a SOS place, it's that big question. What's the big question that I want the kids to explore? And then look maybe at the skill base that the kids need to really effectively explore that. So if it is about looking to the past and comparing it with information from the future, I'm going to have to build learning experiences that do that. But to make that exciting, I might inject it with, putting people in role as people from the past and filming them at the end, you know, but they do all their research about that key person, but they get to play that person at the very end, and we film that and we document that. And maybe I'd use some of those the next year or with the next group to stimulate, to stimulate the development of that concept. So it's hard to say there's one way in. I think you have to look at the kids, who they are, where they're at. You have to look at the clues you get in curriculum documents about each of the art forms, and you have to have a big and important question coming from SOS. What's the big idea? Why is this important?